Okay, bro, enough doom scrolling. We need to study for AP Gov.
Man, okay.
Bro, let's just watch Heimlich history.
Fine.
Dude, that one.
Oh yeah, Baker v. Carr. I think I remember that from class.
Yeah, that one's definitely important.
Yeah, pretty important, I think.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Heimlich History. And I want to start off by saying, don't mind the hair. I'm going for a different look today. But continuing the video, we're going to be looking at two different cases in the AP government curriculum. So that means it's time to look at Baker v. Carr and Plessy v. Ferguson. So if you're ready to get them brain cows milked, let's get right into the cases. The first case we're going to look at is Baker v. Carr, decided by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1962. The case itself began in the Middle District of Tennessee in April 1961. This was after Charles W. Baker and other citizens of Tennessee were arguing that Tennessee hadn't updated its legislative district since 1901.
The argument that Tennessee had for this was that the Supreme Court had decided that questions of redistricting were not justiciable. This meant that courts had no business ruling on such things. And they argued that it was a political question, not a justice question, meaning it was not up to them.
As a result of this, urban citizens' votes were diluted compared to rural citizens. This led to claims that this violated their equal protections rights under the 14th Amendment.
What exactly does the 14th Amendment say? Well, it says that no state shall make or enforce any law which shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws.
The court had to answer a question. Does the court have jurisdiction to decide legislative apportionment cases? Well, the answer was yes.
The court ultimately ruled that challenges to redistricting were justiciable. This meant that the Supreme Court had authority to rule on questions of legislative reapportionment.
The takeaway from this is that the state legislative apportionment cases could be decided by the federal courts, opening the door for the idea of one person, one vote.
The one person, one vote doctrine stated that states had to apportion their representatives in a way that would equally represent all people. This meant that no vote would count more than any other vote.
The court reasoned that under the Equal Protections Clause of the 14th Amendment, citizens must have fair voting representation.
Yo, what's up, guys? What's up, Jonathan? We were just doing some AP Gov for really quick.
Yeah, we were watching a Heimlich video. He's talking about the Supreme Court case Baker v. Carr.
Oh, Baker v. Carr? Yeah, I remember learning that in my favorite class that I attend, 8:30 sharp. That's the case about redistricting in Tennessee that helped rule that federal courts could step in to fix unfair district maps. That case was what gave us the one person, one vote rule, right?
That was a pretty good summary of Baker v. Carr, I'd say.
Yeah, if I saw that video and the summary in class as a presentation in AP Go, I would definitely be ready for the AP exam.
Wait, I want to review, especially Plessy v. Ferguson.
Come on.
Now, let's take a step back to 1896 and explore Plessy v. Ferguson, another case decided by the U.S. Supreme Court. The case itself started in Louisiana state courts. Homer Plessy lost at every level in Louisiana and finally appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, 1896. Louisiana law required separate railway cars for black and white passengers. Homer Plessy, who was 7/8 white, deliberately would sit in a white-only car and was arrested for violating the segregation law.
The law was the Separate Car Act of 1890. This was a Louisiana state law that mandated racial segregation on railroads. This required railroads to provide separate but equal accommodations for white and African American passengers. This meant that there were either separate train cars or partition cars to segregate passengers by race.
Plessy argued that the law violated both the 13th and 14th Amendments. However, the legal question at stake was, does Louisiana's segregation law violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment? Ultimately, the decision the courts made was no.
In a 7-1 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that racial segregation was constitutional under the doctrine of separate but equal. The separate but equal doctrine allowed states for the first time to legally segregate the races. It held that racial segregation was constitutional as long as the separate facilities for different races were considered equal.
The majority of the court held that separation by race did not imply the inferiority of African Americans. But Justice John Marshall Harlem declared that our Constitution is colorblind and that all citizens should be treated equally. Looking at both these cases, we see a difference in the court's decisions. Baker v. Carr expanded voter rights and helped enforce equal representation across districts, while Plessy v. Ferguson instead upheld racial segregation for decades until Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. Both these cases help demonstrate similar issues but difference in outcomes and how the Supreme Court can either promote or even neglect civil rights. Great, that's what you need to know about Baker v. Carr and Plessy v. Ferguson. If you want more videos covering cases, then click right over here and all your dreams will come true. If you want help getting an A in your class and a 5 on your exam, click right here. If this video helped you and you want me to keep making them, subscribe, then I shall oblige.
Wow, I'm really informed now. I think I'm ready for this AP test now.
Dumpster, PvP. Thanks, Heimler. Shout out to my teacher, Mike Litteris. Okay, see what happened there. Laney, thank